Hello everyone and welcome back. In the last video we left off with some ideas on putting together an investment plan. Hopefully by now you've had an opportunity to think about some of the things we talked about. You've got an idea of how much you're willing to risk, how much you can afford to invest, and everything else that goes into making a plan that will work for you. Now this, where you are right now, is the point where most people typically stop. They want to invest, they may even have a plan in mind, but they get overwhelmed by all the choices of brokerage. For those of you that aren't familiar with the term, a brokerage is a company that communicates with Wall Street on your behalf. You put your trade into the brokerage's interface and they do the rest. You've probably heard of at least some of these brokerages. There's some big names on this list like TD Ameritrade, Charles Schwab, Merrill Edge, Fidelity, and a bunch of other ones. When it comes down to it, they're all basically the same thing. What separates them from each other is 1, the commissions, 2, the promotions, and 3, the interface. Now some of these on here do have an interesting promotion going on. For example, if you have $250,000, you can get $600 from TD Ameritrade for opening an account. But I'm willing to bet that most of us aren't in that tax bracket. So the promotions here aren't going to do a whole lot for you. And all of the commissions fall somewhere between $5 and $7, which is pretty typical of the industry. Now, I actually recommend a brokerage that's not on this list. It's called Sogotrade, and I'll take you through why I recommend them among all these others. The first, and perhaps the most important, is the commission schedule. Now, if you're not familiar with the term commissions, that's the amount of money that you have to pay your brokerage for them to put a trade to Wall Street on your behalf. Now, Sogotrade boasts as low as $3 per trade. But in reality, that's only for people that are making 150 trades or more per quarter, which is 600 trades a year. And if you actually think about how many trading days there are per year, that makes it an unrealistic amount. You'd have to trade pretty much all day, every day, in order to reach that threshold, which is not going to be us. We're much more likely to fall within the $4 category. Now, Sogotrade does it a little bit differently. Rather than pay $4 every time you trade, instead, you purchase vouchers and then use those for free trades. You'll see this area where it says see prepaid packages. I think with the $4 package, you're paying $4 and you purchase 20 vouchers at a time. So for $80, you get 20 trades and then you use those as you're trading so that on your screen, when you're actually placing your order, you don't see any commission. It's a little bit different than a lot of other organizations do it, but when it comes down to it, you're still paying $4 per trade, which is about $1 cheaper than most of the other organizations in the industry. One thing that is pretty cool about Sogotrade is that even though they've got an industry standard price for their options, you get a great value for it. So it's $5 base every time you trade options, and then 50 cents per contract. Usually what we're doing with Kamikaze Cash is trading between 1 and 3 contracts. So you're most likely to be paying between $5.50 and $6.50 when you trade your options. It's a little bit cheaper than industry standard, not by much, but you're getting a great value for it. So let's dive into that a little bit more. There's 4 things that separate Sogotrade from the rest of the pack when it comes to options. The first is you get real-time options quotes in your options chain. And what that means is you're actually seeing in real time how the price of an option is changing on Wall Street. You can see the changes between the bid and the ask, and that's extremely helpful when you're looking to get the best price when you want to trade. Second, you get 3 different features that you typically don't see from other organizations. The first one is the Greeks. And we'll have an entire class on what the Greeks are, but when it comes down to it, it's a lot of analytical type information about how you can calculate how the price of your options will change based on the stock price, based on the passage of time, and things like that. We use these fairly extensively at Kamikaze Cash in our strategy, so it's important that we have access to them. Second, you get a great profit and loss chart, which will show you your break-even points when you place a trade. As you're entering the information into the chain, it'll show you how it changes. It shows you where you should expect to make money, where you should expect to lose money as the stock price changes. That's a feature that you typically don't see for free on other websites. You'll either have to pay extra for it, or if they do offer it to you, it's not quite as good as the one that they offer at Sogotrade. And the third thing that you get is the probability calculator. And this I have yet to see on other organizations without paying a premium for it. It'll show you, based on the stock's historic volatility, how likely it is that your option strategy that you're entering into the chain will actually pay off. It looks something like this. You see the bell curve, and it'll show you the probabilities. It'll show you if the strategy that you're entering has a low probability of making you a profit, or if it has a high probability. And that's extremely helpful, especially if you're dealing with a stock for the first time and you want to get a good feel about what you can actually expect from it. Fourth, and the most important to me, is that you get a great options chain that's easy to read. It's got all the information that you need, and you can trade directly off of it. That's something that you're not seeing in other places. Let's take a look at that options chain. I know this looks really, really complicated, and I wish I could get a higher resolution image of it, but this one's a little bit older. The most important features on here are these B's and S's right here, buy and sell. You can trade directly off the options chain. You can enter the information that you want, any number of contracts, and it'll actually update. Over here, you can see the profit and loss calculator. As you're entering your purchases and sales, it'll update over here and show you your break-even points. You can open up your probability calculator. It'll show you how likely you are to actually succeed with this strategy. It's information that you're not going to get from any other brokerage without paying extra money for it. You can see right here the break-even points. The strategy that this person has entered, the break-even points are anything below 90.46, they'll lose money. 90.46 is break-even. Anything in between, up until 93.54, the person will profit. Anything above 93.54, they're going back down into losses. This is hugely important that we can see it right here in front of us as we're entering the information. And even though I don't expect anybody to be able to actually read this options chain now, it's got all the information that we need on it. And when you know what you're looking at, it's actually very easy to read. It's also got the Greeks on it. You highlight over this little sigma here. It'll show you all the information that we need to figure out how we want to approach our strategy. Now compare all this information with Merrill Edge, which looks like something out of the 1990s. And I don't mean that just visually, I mean that in terms of function as well. If you want to enter a different strategy, Sogotrade will actually give you you can trade however you want to, but Merrill Edge gives you a fixed set of option strategies that you can use. It's not a lot of flexibility. And if you want to switch, say we want to do a long straddle, it'll show you the different legs of the option. But again, you lose that flexibility in being able to set the different expiration dates and strike prices. There's a number of different options that you just can't do with this feature, unless you want to do them individually as individual legs. But guess what happens there is that you have to pay the commission multiple times. So if I want to trade something on Sogotrade, all I have to do is enter here a couple of different clicks, and I can trade with any strategy I want to. Merrill Edge, they won't let you do that unless you pay the commission multiple times to trade in several different iterations, which in my opinion is borderlining on scam. Now let's take a look at their options chain. It doesn't have quite as many colors and frills on it, which is okay, but what it's missing, where are my Greeks? The Greeks aren't here, I can't see them. They just don't exist at Merrill Edge. It also doesn't show me my intrinsic value versus time value on the strike price. I don't have that, and I can't trade off of this chain. So if I want to buy 3 contracts at 150 and sell 3 contracts at 152.50, I've got to go back, do the purchases first, do the sales after, pay the commission twice, and I'm getting ripped off like that. So comparing all the different features that Sogotrade has, there's only a few more that I want to touch on. It's got excellent customer service that you're just not going to find everywhere else. I actually used Sogotrade between 2011 and 2016 with no problems whatsoever. In fact, the only reason I ever switched to Merrill Edge in the first place is because you get banking benefits at Bank of America if you use Merrill Edge and you have over $100,000 invested. Even then, it's kind of close between the two of them. You really don't get a whole lot out of Merrill Edge for the money that you have in it. And the app, the mobile app, is absolutely horrendous with Merrill Edge. Sogotrade has a much better app. You can actually use it. And customer service at Merrill Edge is pitiful compared to what you get at Sogotrade. There's really no comparison between the two of them. So I've decided that today is the day where I'm going to open an account with Sogotrade once again. So to keep this video short, what I'll do is cut it here, and when we come back, I'll hit this big orange button, open up an account, and walk you through every step on how to open an account with Sogotrade. I can't tell you what brokerage you need to pick, but I can tell you that picking Sogotrade will not be a mistake, no matter what level of experience you're at. So again, I'll cut it here, and when you come back, we'll go ahead and open an account.